Werewolves have captured the popular imagination since the Middle Ages, so why do they suck so bad in D&D? Maybe because you're running them wrong. Hey there, adventurers. My name is Judd, and this is Short Rest Studios, where we believe fun builds community. I'm a huge werewolf fan. The beastly transformation, the tortured soul, silver bullets, the whole 9 yards. But every time I've been part of a werewolf encounter in D&D, it's been pretty meh. And yeah, I think DMs could run them better, but I also think the monster manual doesn't give us much to work with. Let's fix both and stick around to the end for a werewolf encounter idea that I think you'll love. We're focusing on the 2014 monster manual, but later we're going to talk about a couple of things you should steal from the 2025 manual. It's lore dump time. The curse of the werewolf and of other were creatures is an ancient one that affects only humanoids. It can be passed on in two ways in Dungeons & Dragons. If one or both of your parents are werewolves, you'll be one. Or if you're wounded by one, specifically you have to be bitten by one. If you're bitten and cursed, a remove curse spell can heal you, but if you're born that way, only a wish can save you. Every were creature, of course, has the ability to transform and therefore has three separate forms: humanoid, animal, and hybrid. In humanoid form, a werewolf has heightened senses, a hot temper, and a preference for rare steak. Over time, they may start to develop wolf-like features in this form. In wolf form, they'll appear as more powerful, fearsome, and maybe even larger than a typical wolf, but otherwise, it'd be hard to tell the difference, although they might have unnatural glowing eyes. The hybrid form is the most fun and the most terrifying, a fur-covered, muscular humanoid with a wolf's head. They can wield weapons in this form, but they'd rather fight with their claws and teeth. Typically, when someone becomes a werewolf, they leave civilization behind, either because they don't want to be found out or because they don't want to hurt anyone. And while some might be loners, they can form packs that will include regular wolves and dire wolves, as well as others like themselves. Now, here's where it starts to get a little hinky. If you don't use alignment in your games, you're kind of out of luck. Someone who's bitten and receives the curse can choose to resist or embrace it. If they resist, they're able to retain their personality and alignment in humanoid form, but they will always transform uncontrollably at the full moon. They may have no memory of what happens when they change, but they'll probably have some really bloody dreams. If they embrace the curse, however, their alignment changes to the werewolf's alignment, which is chaotic evil, and they pretty much just become a bloodthirsty killer. Now let's take a look at the stat block. To be honest, a werewolf's stats are a bit lackluster. AC is only 11 in humanoid form and 12 in the others. And they have a fair amount of hit points at 58. Their ability scores, well, strength, dexterity, and constitution are their best, and they're all just kind of decent. Their perception is good at a +4, and they're pretty good at stealth. But what saves them is this: you can beat them, stab them, slash them, but unless the attack is magical or the weapon is silver, they're completely immune. I guess you gotta hope you can get your hands on some fire or lightning or poison or something. Otherwise, nobody but casters will be able to hurt them. They can use their action to polymorph into one of their three forms, and they have advantage on perception checks that use hearing or smell. They have multi-attack, so in their humanoid form, they can attack twice with their spear. That's a +4 to hit, doing 5 or 6 average damage. And in the hybrid form, they get 1 bite and 1 claw attack. And each of those is also a +4 to hit, doing 6 and 7 average damage respectively. In wolf form, they can only bite once per turn. Now, they don't do a ton of damage, but anytime they bite a humanoid, the target has to make a DC 12 con save or get the werewolf curse. And that, other than the shape changing, is really the only thing about D&D werewolves that make them unique. Incidentally, one of the ways the 2025 Monster Manual really takes away their bite, yes, the pun was intended. Have you met me? The pun's always intended. In the 2025 manual, when the target succeeds on the con save, they're immune to the curse for 24 hours. You may as well just ditch the curse altogether. So DMs, what do we do with this? Keith of mine, as always, I'll drop a link to his book and blog, The Monsters Know What They're Doing, in the description, has some thoughts on this. And honestly, I don't necessarily agree with them all. Amon calls into question the use of shape changing as an action. He says you should ditch it because it's low benefit and high risk to transform when they could be attacking. But hear me out, Keith, if you're watching this. He's probably not. They run in packs with werewolves, wolves, and direwolves. Why would they not choose to transform into a more powerful form while their pack mates attack? What I would say is that transforming from either humanoid or hybrid to wolf form makes no sense tactically for a werewolf unless they're running away. Their speed is increased in wolf form. Transform into the hybrid for combat or not at all. And they're smart enough to do it somewhat strategically. Of course, this only makes sense at all for a werewolf that has embraced their curse, and the stat block appears to assume that they have. Here's where I do agree with Amon. In hybrid form, they'll only engage in melee combat. I mean, they can only use their ranged weapon in humanoid form. Their stealth proficiency means they want to attack from hiding, and preferably with the element of surprise on their side. Generally speaking, unless they know you have a silvered weapon or magical attack of some kind, most of their prey probably won't. They're not worried about opportunity attacks. As predators, that means they'll go for the weakest first, and if a ranged weapon or a spell hits them, they'll take the dash action into hiding and look for another chance to attack. But if a PC misses or does less than, say, 5 HP damage with a melee attack, they'll stay where they are and keep attacking that target. This bit is interesting. They're predators, and predators tend to go for the weak prey, right? These guys are used to not taking damage. If they get hit by a silvered or magical weapon, most likely they'll think it's not worth the fight and run away using the dash action. Legacy Game Tables, formerly Carolina Game Tables, is a family-owned business started by game designers Clint and Jody Black in 2015. Not only are their signature game tables and other furniture strong and absolutely gorgeous, but they're created by real gamers who know what we need. They feature a wide-edge design that's perfect for RPG books, board game pieces, or drinks and snacks. There are even optional cup holders and a top that transforms your game table into your dining table. And as a member of the Short Rest Studios community, you can head to legacygametables.com/shortreststudios for 10% off the gaming furniture of your dreams. You can take these tips and create a more or less typical D&D combat encounter with werewolves. If your party are generally the good guys, then theoretically they'll be fighting werewolves who have given into the curse, become bloodthirsty killers, and can transform at will. And that could be fun. But I want you to flip that on its head. First off, there are two things in the 2025 Monster Manual that are missing from the 2014 manual and that 100% need to be there. I fell down a serious rabbit hole, wolf hole, researching this, but contrary to popular belief, wolves are not nocturnal. They're crepuscular. That means they're most active at twilight, dawn, and dusk. And did you know that their eyes have a reflective layer that gives them better low light vision? That's why a lot of animals' eyes appear to glow in the dark. But that same feature probably also causes them to have poorer vision in daylight. So why am I talking about lupine biology? Because in D&D, much like cats, wolves, and werewolves should have dark vision. Makes no sense. You won't usually run into a wolf during the day. You shouldn't run into a werewolf either. They will most likely attack when the sun has just dropped below the horizon, but since they don't have dark vision, they'll actually have disadvantage on attacks in darkness. Give them dark vision in your game. The second thing they're missing, they form packs. Why don't they have pack tactics? They have them in 2025. Go ahead and give it to them. They have advantage on attacks when an ally is within 5 feet. Adding these two features will make them more difficult opponents, especially the pack tactics. So maybe someone besides your lowest level players, who are usually going to have a heck of a time finding someone who can remove it, will now have a chance to get that werewolf curse. So here's my idea for a werewolf encounter. Go ahead, steal it, and let me know how it turns out. Your party is in the countryside, having traveled a day or so from their home base village where animal attacks on livestock have been increasing for some time. 2 nights previous, a farmer was killed by a wolf while trying to protect his cows. They're accompanied by a local, an NPC, who's offered to help them find and kill the offending animals in return for their help locating his missing wife. The sun begins to set. Wolves begin to howl from a not-so-great distance as your heroes camp near the woods. The moon rises, a full moon. Suddenly their NPC friend convulses with pain and transforms into a vicious hybrid beast covered in gray fur with the head of a wolf. Maybe he knew he'd been cursed, maybe he didn't. If he did, you can create some really fun and interesting roleplay encounters. The party doesn't want to kill him, but they have to protect themselves. Then the wolves arrive, ambushing them from the cover of the forest. They dash from one party member to another, looking for the weakest prey. One wolf, larger, more powerful, more vicious than the others, leaps from the cover of the trees. Mid-leap, it transforms into another gruesome hybrid creature. It can't attack your party until after it transforms, but its presence seems to empower the other members of its pack, who seem to strike with greater accuracy. Perhaps the party's companion joins in with the wolf pack, or maybe he fights the pack. Either way, they're all attacking the party, and the party's weapons seem to be having no effect, at least on the two werewolves, until the wizard lands a spell. One of the party lights a torch and starts to club and burn the beasts. If your party doesn't run away or die, one of two endings are likely. The pack runs away, determining that these folks aren't worth the trouble. Days later, your adventurers locate their companion naked and alone in the forest with no memory of what happened, but plagued by horrible, violent nightmares. Or somehow the party defeats them. If they kill both werewolves, they transform back into their humanoid forms, the party's companion and his wife. As they take their dying breaths, they reach for each other. And of course, if any of your party fails their con save and takes the curse, you have a whole other level of fun to contend with. There are a couple of ways you can approach this if, of course, you are using alignment in your game. If the PC chooses to embrace the curse because they can't bear to fight it, or because they were already evil, then they become chaotic evil and they need to role play that accordingly. But I think the more interesting gameplay and the best story comes when they resist it. If they choose to resist the curse, they have no control over the transformation. It happens every full moon. You can, as the DM, take control of the character when they transform and thus wreak havoc on the party and surrounding countryside. My preference, though, is to have the player roleplay the change. You have to have someone who is willing to turn evil and play against their friends one day out of every month of game time, yet who isn't the person who wants to turn every interaction into PvP combat. Having the DM take control is likely to put you in an adversarial role against your players. If you choose to give the player the responsibility, you need to clearly explain to everyone all that it entails. That's how you run werewolves in a D&D game, adventurers. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future content. And please consider supporting the channel by joining the Adventurers Guild at patreon.com/shortreststudios, or by hitting the join button right under the video. If you want more monster tactics for your campaign, check out this video, and I'll see you next time on Short Rest Studios.